Kyle, as we get into this one, this is one of those where I'm going to start this off by saying, according to Rolling Stone magazine, this is the 462nd greatest album of all time. It is The Gilded Palace of Sin by the Flying Burrito Brothers, and we have thoughts about this one. I think I probably have more thoughts because I chose to think about it more. It sounds like you gave it a listen and we're kind of like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm over it.
Hey, it's Kyle. Just jumping in real quick to ask, do you approve this groove? Let us know in the comments. Give us a quick thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, join the conversation.
I mean,
So,
yeah, I wrote down it's country.
why don't you? Kind of.
Yeah,
Right?
it's,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
the Flying Burrito Brothers. Now, there's a comedian, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name, but he's on Instagram. He the thing that I found him on was he does this segment called Good Band Name, Bad Band Name.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And yes, yeah. And this is one, I'm sure he's done this, but for no rhyme or reason, he'll be like, the Flying Burrito Brothers. That's a bad band name, right? And then he'll just move on.
Mm-hmm.
There are other bands that I've come across there where their name is enough of a deterrent for me to take seriously, and this is one of them. Like, the Flying Burrito, that's what, like, that tells me that you don't take yourself seriously. Which some bands don't, and good for them. This is Graham Parsons and Chris Hillman's modern country music project that infused folk and country together with some gospel and psychedelic rock. Graham Parsons was in the Byrds, and this just seemed like a weird project to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've talked. There was a couple albums on this chunk that we've done where, as best we can figure, they're on the list for their contributions that came after them. This album and this band are widely considered to have sort of broken down the doors for like bands like the Eagles to get into like that sort of pop country crossover, right? Like that lived in the country world and in the rock sort of pop world. Um, I don't know how it did it because I didn't care for any of it. Well, actually, I take that back. I re-listened to it, and the song "Dark End of the Street" was also on Linda Ronstadt's
Yes,
album.
I wrote that
Again,
down. Yeah.
right, which I was like, okay, that song still holds up.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I was just, when you have two songs back to back called Hot Burrito Number 1 and Hot Burrito Number 2, again, like, you just kind of lost me. It like
I like if this was the band name and then they put out music like The Far Side where they weren't taking themselves seriously, where it was very intentionally juvenile and just kind of silly and goofy, then that would be one thing. This didn't do anything for me. I honestly don't even know what to say about it because I just listened to it and it just was. It felt like a bunch of guys who weren't in country music did a country album.
it feels like there's a band called I think it was the Bronx. I think that was their name. That for some inexplicable reason in like the late aughts, like put out a mariachi band album. They're like a punk post hardcore kind of like band, and they put out I think it's entitled like El Mariachi Bronx or something like that. Maybe I'll figure it out, but and it was like just this kind of goofy thing that the band did, right? Rather than create a new band, like they just put out this album and it was different. And again, I just listened to this thinking like this just seems like a thing that they caught their interest in and they just wanted to do it. Um, that I have a hard time taking seriously. Sorry,
yeah, the other big thing that I wrote down with this album, and it isn't even related to the music itself, but I noticed a lot of the similarities. I noticed a lot of similarities to that Jefferson Airplane album that we listened to last week with the recording techniques. So this is the same, like 1968, 69, somewhere in there with when they were first experimenting with with stereo recording. And one thing that I did find interesting was that they played with panning the vocals in interesting and different ways, where they would pan the lead vocal like hard left and then the harmony to that hard right. So you've got like one in each ear.
Mm-hmm.
And it had an interesting effect that I found kind of interesting to listen to. But as a whole, that wasn't enough to make me actually like the album.
Yeah, I mean the album didn't do well commercially, which as we've talked about before, it isn't an indicator. You know, you don't have to go 10 times platinum to be on this list. That's not what this isn't the 500 best-selling albums of all time. That would be a much different list. But you know, I mean, artists like Travis Tritt, Vince Gill, Alan Jackson, Clint Black, and Randy Travis all cite this album as an influence on their music. So we're talking about late 80s, 90s country.
Mm-hmm.
I already mentioned the Eagles. So again, like I mean, I'll say this: they're better musicians than I am. The slide guitar, steel guitar on there is good, which is what Sneaky Pete Winehouse radical pedal steel guitar was cited in this one. They're much so, you know, how dare I shit talk them, you know what I mean? But like this one doesn't resonate with me, and when I think of it in those terms, it's like I'm not the biggest country music fan, so it's I guess it's not a surprise to me that like this sort of bridge version of country music didn't strike a chord with me either. Because if we're going down the rabbit hole into music that had a big impact on country, then I guess you've kind of lost me already.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested I'd be interested to talk to a person that says like I am a fan of this album and have them tell us why. That would be cool. So if you're out there and you love the Flying Burrito Brothers, like please drop us a line.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, teach us something. Because this album, The Gilded Palace of Sin from the Flying Burrito Brothers, did not really teach me anything in that 462.
Hey, thanks for watching. We'd love to know what you think of this album, so let us know in the comments. Do you approve this groove? And as always, a quick thumbs up helps a lot. Subscribe so you can see all 500 albums, and we'll see you on the next record.